I am currently making two separate tabletop RPGs, one for the Suicide Squad and one for Rebel Moon. A while back, I reported on the legal stumblings of Netflix trying to get a tabletop RPG out the door set in the Rebel Moon universe. It was something that I was looking forward to, and the people who worked on it apparently did a ton of lore and expansion into things that would have been really interesting. So I decided when I saw enough people online bummed about that cancellation, or at least the delay, that I was going to go make my own. A choose-your-own-adventure style, D&D inspired, but a little bit more simplified way of going on an adventure. And in this case, you can choose to work for the Mother World or for the Rebels, and you can double cross, and the story and gameplay is in a formative stage. Because right now I'm focusing on the Suicide Squad one, Task Force X, loosely inspired by a couple of unmade Suicide Squad movie scripts, and of course heavily influenced by just the greater DC, meaning the movies, video games, comic books, animation, live action, the whole shebang. I'm trying to put a little bit of something in there for everyone. Because over the last few years, I felt less and less like a DC fan, less and less like I mattered to the company, to the brand, and even to other fans. So when I make this Suicide Squad game, it'll be one of two things. A way to say goodbye, or a way to fall back in love with the brand that I was raised on, that I grew up watching the cartoons and reading the comic books of. I remember teaching my siblings how to read in the golden trimmed Batman books. Specifically, we had the one about Mr. Freeze, and we had one where he worked with Zatanna. I remember those vividly, but I'm an adult, and it seems like both the company and the greater fan base is violently against anyone who happens to enjoy 99% of the same thing they do, but 1% of something they hate. But that's not going to stop me from making one last epic thing. It's going to involve character sheets, in-depth glossaries about each of the keywords, meaning bleed, damage, stun, AC, HP. If you've never played a tabletop game, this will explain how to do it. If you have played a tabletop game, well, you can probably skip through some of the pages. It'll have no AI anything, no text, no story, no art. It will all be stuff that just exists. I'm using Photoshop, and I'm drawing and editing and trying to make versions of these characters that seem familiar enough that you'll be excited to play as them, but different enough that you'll have fun taking them in your own direction and making them all your versions of these characters. I'm even going to include blank versions of the character sheets so you can go and make your own squad members. You could turn your friend, your neighbor, your teacher, your coworker into a squad member and play as them. It's going to have multiple chapters. It was originally going to just be a one-shot, but I got carried away and a friend pointed out a cool idea, and I decided I was just going to keep going, and now it's quite a bit larger than I expected. I'm really only working on the first chapter right now, but I have the first 4 of 12 playable characters pretty much finalized. Their character sheets are there. We've already done the graphic design work. I'll have a couple of teases up here probably that you can see right now. And it's going to be an adventure where you are sent to Kahndaq to go on a Black Ops mission to take out a high-value target. Because Amanda Waller knows that Black Adam claims to be the leader of Kahndaq, but is actually a vicious ruler. Of course, she's also probably trying to finagle better oil prices for the American government and is breaking the law to do that because, that's what she does. She manipulates the whole world to try and give America a leg up. That's like her job description. You'll get to choose your primary character, a secondary character, and a third character in case those other characters die, because unlike other games where you can take a long rest and heal, you can't in this game. It's a Suicide Squad. Don't get too attached. That's right, this game is going to reference both of the live-action Suicide Squad movies, video games, comics, so on. It'll have a little bit of everything. This is for every type of fan, from Lego Batman to Detective Comics. The whole shebang. Elseworld, multiverse, old canon, new canon, movies, cartoons, video games, whatever. It's meant to be fun. And after I finish it and I put it out, I'm going to come up with a couple extra things, a couple extra characters. Like I've got Deadshot in the game, but maybe you want to play as Bloodsport. going to be honest, it's going to pretty much be the same character, but that's an easy thing for me to turn around and give you. Killer Croc can also sub in for King Shark, things like that. Like, characters whose gimmicks are so similar, and they have a history that fans might enjoy playing as, so I'll give you a chance to be both. So I already have a list of characters I want to include after the fact, and none of this will be paid for. It'll all be 100% free. Obviously, I don't own the rights to these DC characters. I am going to have a place where you can tip me if you really like it, if you want to support it, if you want me to make more characters, more maps, more stories. I already have a second story in mind, and it's really fun. And it's another example of, if you love anything DC, you'll find something at this all-you-can-eat buffet that's for you. And it's supposed to be something where people who like tabletop games but don't know much about DC can get a taste for a lot of DC, not just one continuity, not just one style. And people who love DC but haven't played a lot of tabletop games will have a nice entry point that's similar enough to Dungeons & Dragons that they could move on to the more standard gameplay systems, but is simplified and explainable in a way that you can just put the piece of paper in front of them and they can probably figure it out on their own. This is from a fan to fans. I have other fans who are helping me play test it, who are helping me come up with lore, who have helped me come up with some of the story stuff. Some people who have way more experience making tabletop adventures, specifically more in the D&D and like Spelljammers worlds that they're really into. I was never into that much as a kid, but I think this is the perfect way to give fans basically their own DC universe. You can tweak the character. You can redraw your own version of what Mr. Freeze should look like, or what Scarecrow, or Katana, or, Harley Quinn, whatever. It's up to you. And you can come up with your own brand new character. You could make yourself a Squad Sona, if you will. Maybe I should coin that. You could just make your own character. I would like to make a roll sheet where you can randomly generate or choose, like a pick and choose situation where it's very intentional, where you can just invent new criminals that are you or your friends, and you don't have to play as an existing squad member. But yeah, my goal is to have this done by Halloween. That is my goal. I have spent the last whole week buckling down, doing graphic design, lore, in-universe newspapers. Basically, like, I made a Taskopedia, which is Task Force X Wikipedia, that is all built into this that you can read about. There's going to be extra lore that only the person running the game can know about, so that if you ask a question, they can decide how much of the truth or how much of what's going on to reveal to you. And again, I already have ideas for something that would be really fun for everyone as a sequel to this, which will involve some pretty wild concepts, but all things that have been done in DC a gajillion times. But that's why we love DCs. They do fun things. This will be a full adventure for up to 4 players, or you can do 2 players controlling 2 characters, 1 person controlling 4 characters. In the future, I'd like to do a completely solo-built version. And it'll have multiple chapters, so if your friend group doesn't have a ton of time, you could just kind of do it in little segments that make sense, sort of like story acts. And then once that's done, I'm going to shift over to the Rebel Moon side, where I'm going to be drawing upon a lot of lore. I wanted to wait for the director's cuts to come out anyway before I could really start working on it, to get all of the lore building. And also the Seneschal, which has been going out. That's a lot of lore about the Jimmies and the Imperium, so I want to know about that. I'm going to revisit the comic books about House of Blood Axe. I'm going to revisit V. Castro's novelizations for any added lore, and potentially looking into getting those books about the world building and the animals and creatures of Rebel Moon, those 2 separate books that Netflix made. I am going to add some new things to it. I'm not just here to riff on things that exist. In both the Suicide Squad and Rebel Moon, there's going to be new lore, new twists, new species, new types of enemies. Because if you're just repeating what's already been done, it's kind of boring. But it also shouldn't be so different that it's unrecognizable. And it's an interesting balance. And the great thing is with these tabletop games, if you guys get them and you want it to be crazier, you can make them crazier. If you want it to be less insane, you can tone it down. It's all up to you. It's your version of DC or Rebel Moon when I hand it to you. But yeah, it's really exciting. It's a blast. I want to prove that it's more fun to celebrate what we love, which is DC, Rebel Moon, these characters, these stories. It's more fun to focus on that than argue about the color of Superman's suit, or box office numbers, or continuity. it's way more fun to just play and join up together online or in person and just play a game together. And so that's really the core of this, is that we're better together, and it's more fun when we're friends than enemies. So that's what I've been up to. It's why my uploads have been so inconsistent over the last few months. I'm working on books. I'm working on tabletop games. That's what I do. And I hope that when it comes out, it maybe reminds the DC fandom that it's way more fun to play together than it is to argue with one another, and that we should celebrate what unites us and not what separates us. So we'll see. So stay tuned for updates on Suicide Squad and Rebel Moon tabletop RPGs. Totally fan-made, totally free, totally made for you, the fans, to enjoy. Thanks for watching.